Hello, everyone. Today we have a guest from whom I am keen to learn some hacks. We have with us Justin Herring, local SEO and lead gen expert, owner of Local, a results focused SEO agency in Atlanta. Their reviews and client success stories say it all. Hello, Justin. How is it going?
It's going good, going good. How about you?
Doing well, man. Staying home, staying safe in the lockdown.
Exactly. Same here, same here.
Right. Justin, it would be great if you introduce yourself and tell us what type of clients you mainly cater to.
Yep. Yeah. So I run a boutique digital marketing agency. We've got about 17 members, mostly focus on local SEO service-based businesses. A lot of our clients are kind of in the medical, MRI places or dentists or med spas or places like that. We've got other clients as well that are nationwide. But we like to focus in that space of service-based businesses that have a brick and mortar or franchises as well.
Mhm. So mainly local and mainly dentist and health.
Yeah, we like that space just because they continually need new leads coming in, new business, and they spend money on marketing, so
Right, right.
makes sense. Yeah.
Also, as an agency, what difference do you feel, or what is good? Niche versus broad.
It's it's a tough one because you know it, some people are like, yeah, you should go all in on the niche. Well, the problem with that is, like, right now, if we were all in on a certain niche, we could be out of business. But since we are actually pretty broad, we kind of focus on certain things that we like, but we turn away a lot of clients that just don't fit, our specific. If we can tell that we're not going to be able to generate leads for them. I mean, it just depends on what you want to do. I personally don't like constantly working with the exact same industry, just because it gets kind of boring. But I also like it sometimes if I've got a lot of stuff to do, and then I can get a couple new clients on, and I don't have to think about it too much because we've already worked with that type of niche before. It makes it easy. So there's no right or wrong answer, I don't think.
I understand. I mean, process-wise, maybe
Yep.
it's kind of easier when you're focusing on a niche, but I think it's more fun diversifying
Yep.
new industries, new strategies. Right.
Yep.
So Justin, I was going through your homepage of yeahlocal.com, YEAH-LOCL.com. I can see that you have optimized the page very well, content wise, and even like apart from just optimizing the keywords, the way the content is presented is amazing.
Yep.
So wanted to know your process of planning content for a particular page or set of keywords.
Well, it's going to depend on if you're writing like a blog post or if it's just going to be a service page, or either or. So if you're going for like a blog post, then yeah, you're going to do the keyword research for that specific term. Obviously, my main thing is, a lot of people get into, let me run it through let me run my content into these optimizers and find out exactly what, how many terms the top 10 pages they got and all that kind of stuff. I don't do that. Just because it just seems at a certain point, you're just spending too much time on trying to optimize it when there's a lot of other factors that go into it. So usually what we do is we just put the keywords in the title. We put it in the title. We put it in the first paragraph. We sprinkle some, long tail, keyword modifiers in there throughout, and then we put the keyword again in the last paragraph, and then also in the meta description. And then at that point, and I do that even for service pages, so local service pages or even home pages or stuff like that. And then at that point, what you can do is, obviously, you post it, publish it, wait like a week or two, kind of see where it falls. Because a lot of times what happens is it's all going to depend on how authoritative your site is too. So people sit down, they can optimize those posts or those pages. They could optimize it to, the same specifics that a number one ranking site has.
Uh-huh.
But if that number one ranking site has, hundreds of backlinks to it,
Obviously.
that makes it, a huge authority, then it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to need to get more backlinks. So it kind of, don't waste your time optimizing it too much until you can see where it falls. And then at that point, you can go in and kind of tweak it or just get some more backlinks to it. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, Justin, you do a lot of local SEO. You work with a lot of local businesses. How does your local SEO process look like?
So what I've noticed with a lot of other agencies is our SEO is pretty straightforward and simple. Like a lot of businesses are like, build all these Google stacks and do all this, stuff with your map embeds and all that stuff. We don't do any of that. We have done it before, and it just seems like a huge waste of time. So our SEO process is basically, we go in and we look at the site, we see what you're ranking for currently. If you do not have location pages set up for the areas you're trying to go after, we build those out for each specific type of service. So if you've got 5 different services, we build out location pages for each of those services for each of those locations. And at that point, so if you've got, we may end up building out 200, plus pages on a site manually to, include those in there. And then obviously we optimize the homepage. But really, it just comes down to, we'll go out and get on the local SEO side. So it's mainly building out those pages, making sure the Google My Business listing is set up properly. It's got all the info in it. We'll put in all the services. And then once we do that, it's all about backlinks. A lot of people in local SEO don't really focus on that, but we do. We get like huge authoritative backlinks to the service pages and the homepage, and then also to the actual Google listing. And that just works gangbusters. I mean, nobody else is doing it, so the sites start ranking quickly.
Right. So Justin, when it comes to creating, location specific pages, like you said, so let's say it's a moving company and, they have, let's say 5 locations and, they have residential moving and commercial moving. So I'll be creating, let's say for Fairfax, I create residential moving Fairfax, commercial moving Fairfax. So I'll have like a lot of pages, which you said, how do you ensure, you're not creating too much doorway pages, spammy pages? How do you decide that? Maybe, creating a specific page for every county, or, just take this, like how do you plan that?
Usually I just go by cities. So it's just the main, the cities. I don't do any counties or zip codes or anything like that. And then what you want to do, so you want to create your main, let's say your main service page. You want to beef that page up, okay? So let's say you just said Fairfax, okay? Let's say Fairfax is your main location. So what I would do is go in and, beef that page up, put all the content on it, put, some frequently asked questions, optimize it for conversion. And then once you got that page fully optimized, that's the page you're going to use to duplicate. And then once you duplicate it, you just change a couple, change the URL, change the heading, change the meta description, a couple other things to the cities. What we've seen is you do not need to create new content. You do not need to worry about it being spammy. As long as it's actually decent in the beginning, then it ranks, perfectly fine.
So basically that was what my next question was, that, I mean, if you just change for the other pages, if you're just changing the cities and maybe the headings, but the main content is the same, you're saying that it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter. I've tested this across literally hundreds of sites, thousands of pages, and we're ranking in the top 3 for cities that have, I guess you would say, I guess it would be duplicate content, sure. But it's actually has different titles, headers, it talks about the different cities a little bit, but not much. There's not a huge difference in the pages. I mean, you can look at huge authority sites. I mean, this is exactly what they do. It's not like they've got, different content. Again, this is one of those things that's like an SEO myth. that people will say you need different content on the pages, but I haven't seen it have any effect. So
Right, right. Also, what are the key elements that you look at while optimizing the Google My Business page?
the actual Google My Business listing, you
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yep.
Um, so first off, you want to make sure that it's linking over to obviously the page that you want to, the city that you want to show up. So if you've got, like, let's say an Atlanta page on your site, make sure that it's linking over to that Atlanta page, if it's the Atlanta listing. All
Hmm.
right. And then more or less, you just want to go in and you want to fill out, you just got to fill out everything in that Google My Business listing. So you want to make sure all the categories. So if there's 10 categories that could make sense,
Hmm.
you want to make sure that all of them are filled out. So you want to search through and kind of see, first of all, go through and see what your competitors are showing up for, but you're not going to probably be able to get all of them. And then start kind of searching in there and seeing if you can pull up a couple more categories that you may fall into that you could show up to. So categories is a big thing. See what the number one or number two or number three, businesses that are already ranking, see what categories they're showing up for. If it's not the one that your primary is, you need to switch it. That's number one. And then you just got to fill out. So if you've got, like we talked about, those service pages on the services section of your listing, you need to go in and fill out all those services, put a little bit of content in there as well, and make sure that that's all filled out completely. So add in services, add in a couple other things so that Google understands, what services you're offering. And then same thing with the description, add in a couple, nice little blurb in there with your keyword, your main keyword you want to go after. And then, basically that's it. And then more or less, once we do that, that's when we do guest posts to the Google listing. That has, usually it's got keyword rich anchor text in it. So
Right,
it's,
right.
yeah.
So that was my second question was that how does link building differ, for local businesses as compared to a business whose focus is nationwide?
It doesn't differ a whole lot is the whole thing. So the way that we work it doesn't differ at all. The only difference is if it was like a national business and they didn't want to rank their Google listing, then
Hmm.
I wouldn't get them links to that Google listing. But the same links that I'm getting for local to like service pages or home pages or even blog posts, I'm getting those same links for national sites. So we're going out and we're we're doing guest posts on sites that have DAs. We don't get anything that has a DA less than 40 plus. So usually they're between 40 and 90. And so you get just a couple, let's say you get 5 to 10 of those to a couple pages on your site. That thing's going to be, it's going to start ranking pretty quickly.
No,
Yep.
absolutely. Even, I have tested like doing, GMBs for local businesses. So,
Yep.
guest posts for local businesses. And I completely agree, as long as the quality of the links, you're using, the guest posts you're doing, and the way the anchor text, it's not looking like, you know,
Yeah. Yep.
deliberate inserted anchor text. I mean, it works for local businesses also.
Correct. Yeah. So we do a little bit less. It just depends on if we're going for the GMB listing. Like on the GMB listing, what we do is we still do guest posts, but when we link over, we actually link over to the SID, uh,
Uh-huh.
the um, the SID URL, which is just the map URL, Google Maps URL. So we link over to that, and that seems to be work. It seems to work pretty good. We can tell once. A lot of times we'll see when we can tell when we do an anchor text, all of a sudden it'll boost it up within, like a week or so after doing that.
Right, right. Also talking about GMBs, let's say even if we are able to rank in the top three packs,
Mhm.
but the GMB doesn't have reviews, obviously a user would go to the listing which has reviews. Is there
Yep.
any strategy that you're using which ensures that the, clients are getting regular reviews there?
Yeah. So the way that we work is we have campaigns that kind of encompass all this. So we don't take on clients that are just doing like link building or just optimizing the site. So when we take on clients, we're doing the whole marketing campaign. Besides social, that's the only thing we don't do social posting or anything like that. But basically what we do is we set them up with a review marketing system and have them, if they're not already doing it, we integrate it into their system where they're able to use our autoresponders to send out emails and texts and able to go through a review marketing kind of funnel. And so that allows them to continually get, on a daily, weekly basis, new reviews in there. So yeah, that's one of the top priorities is getting those reviews.
Right, right. Any good tools for reviews?
Yeah, I mean, we've used Grade.us for probably 5 years. I've looked at other stuff. There's tons of them out there, but as far as the price point, you just can't really beat it. I think they've raised the prices a little bit, but it's still
A little bit, but it's still fine because we use the same tool. So, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's just you can't really beat it for the price in the service. I mean, so.
Right, right. Best practices for doing citations. How many are, not too much, not too less? Which ones to go after, and how often?
Yeah, so here's another one where we kind of we are not in the, I guess, same thinking as a lot of people. Citations, I think, are pretty worthless. All right. What we do is when we get a new client, we just look and see, we'll run it through, that Bright Local grader, citation grader. And then we'll see if they've got citations. If they've got between, let's say, 40 to 60 citations already, then we're not even going to do anything. If they don't, then we'll just run them through we'll just order like an aggregator through Bright Local and just push them out to the 4 different aggregators and just roll with it like that. And that's the only thing that we do with citations. Besides, obviously, we get the main 4 or 5, which is, Yelp, Facebook, Google, Bing, Apple, but that's it. That's all we do. So after that, there's no citation building at all.
Right, right. So it's more of guest posts.
Yep. Correct.
Right, right. So Justin, what tool or what tools are you using for the local rank tracking?
Right now we use Bright Local for everything,
Mm-hmm.
for all the rank tracking. Again, just because it's got accurate rank tracking and the price point is pretty good as far as, how many keywords you can track. Because we track probably per client, we're tracking usually at least 300 to 1,000 keywords.
Mm-hmm. Right,
So,
right.
so they actually, they allow you to track a lot.
Right, right. So Justin, you have had a successful tenure, in real estate. When you were doing lead gen for real estate, you were able to generate tons of lead. In fact, you made the company shift their budget towards digital marketing. So what I want to know is, what did you do? What was the magic? And, what actually works as far as lead gen is concerned in the real estate niche?
So actually in that niche, there was a software that we were using that we just ran Facebook ads that allowed them to get home buyer reports, home seller, sorry about that, home selling reports. So it's kind of like a Zillow. It's kind of like Zillow where the home sellers would put in their info because they wanted to find out what the property was worth, and we'd run Facebook ads to this software. And then once they got their information in there, the real estate agent would just follow up with them. And a lot of times these were leads that weren't like, ready to sell right the second, but there was a year-long email campaign that went out that continually messaged them saying, hey, look, it looks like your home price has changed. Get your new, home seller report showing what your property is worth. And so this would continually, once you fill the pipeline, usually you would get, I'd say, 5 to 10 new leads / listings a month based on just having that pipeline full of listings in a certain local area that you had generated from Facebook off
Right.
of those leads. So I mean, it worked. It worked pretty good.
Right, right. And how did these, emails look like? I mean, were they like generic or maybe like newsletters specific to, like specific areas? How would you plan that? Because I'm sure, it would be,
Yeah. So the
uh,
emails were more generic, but they look like they were just they were just plain text emails. They weren't anything like a nice you know nice email. They were just plain text emails that came over. They just said, hey, hey Bob, it looks like your home's has changed prices this month. Get your home seller report updated now. And then he would just click. He'd go back over and get his home seller report updated. And then the landing pages were also very city specific. So when they went to the landing page, it said, get your home report for Atlanta, Georgia. So that's, did they send them? No, these were more generic emails, but it looked non-generic.
right, right. Right now, while doing local SEO for local businesses, I
Yep.
mean, how are you using, the visual content? So basically, what I'm trying to ask is how to use visual content productively and effectively as far as local SEO is concerned.
Visual content, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, like videos, infographics.
We use them some. We don't use them a ton. Usually we're using it more for conversion. A
Mhm.
conversion on the actual website or a conversion on the blog posts. We'll upload them to YouTube sometimes and also on the Google listing, but we're not using them specifically a ton for actually generating leads. We're seeing that most of the leads that we get, we've done that before, but most of the leads that we get are generated off of those Google listings and then the organic listings. Um, so it's kind of like, could I do it? Sure, but is it gonna? I'd rather spend money different ways. Put it that way.
Right, right, right. So Justin, talking about, local businesses, the increase
Yep.
of voice is increasing. Have you done any testing with voice search?
Yeah. So what we've noticed is basically the voice search is you're more or less optimizing it the same as your regular SEO. It's kind of you don't have to do a whole lot different. If you're optimizing it correctly with the terms and you've got some frequently asked questions on there and you've got some a table of contents and some other stuff, there's not a whole lot more you're going to have to do. I mean, it's um, you can put some audio on there, some podcasts, or you audio your blog post. But for right now, I don't think there's a whole lot more you need to do besides getting featured in those snippets and a couple other things if those are popping up. But in local, I'm not seeing it that affected as much in that space. So we have a couple clients that show up in a bunch of featured snippets, but those are more so you just need your table of contents on the page. You just need to make sure it's optimized and it'll work the exact same.
Right, right. Uh, Justin, what has been your biggest challenge, in SEO so far?
Oh, just figuring out what actually worked and what was a bunch of, junk. Um, like I said, there's a bunch of stuff out there that's just people are just doing so much for local SEO that just doesn't need to be done. Um, a couple examples would be we stopped. People are doing what is it? They put the images. They geotag the images. They geotag this stuff. They go out and they build all these second tier links and all this. What we found, I mean, that may work. I don't know. It just seems like a lot of work to see if it can happen. So it's kind of just figuring out the process of what you really need to do and what is just a bunch of fluff. That's kind of the hardest part of any SEO. So once you can get down your process to figure out like, hey, this is the step 1, step 2, step 3, and once you get that down and you're like, I can do this on every client now, then you're good to go. I mean, it's pretty easy. The other part is just being patient. So most of what happens does not happen, even if you're doing everything correctly. The site could literally go backwards for a month. And if you get scared, or you just don't know what you're doing, or you've never done this before, you could stop what you're doing or try to do something else and mess it all up. But we've seen sites go backward for a month and all of a sudden shoot up to number one. So you just got
Right.
to be patient and kind of just keep going with what works.
Right, right. Also, Justin, I've seen a lot of agencies complain who work with local businesses that they say that they have a decent amount of churn rate, you know,
Mhm.
clients coming and going. But I also feel a very, critical reason for that is, you know, SEO is not necessary. It is a good fit for every local business. And,
Correct.
I know that, your process all starts with a consultation call where you actually see whether that business is a good fit and actually SEO is the solution for that business. Tell us more about that call and actually what you do on that call.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So this is another thing that we've refined, down to the process, because I don't want to waste my time or the business owner's time. So what we do is we basically schedule like a 5-minute call with
Mhm.
every lead. I mean, it can be 5 to 15 minutes, but it's about 5 to 15 minutes. And before I get on the call, usually I'll just kind of go through and run like a quick 5-minute audit. I can kind of look at a couple things just to see where their site's at, what's happening, if they're in the realm. And then usually what I'll do is I get on the phone, I just ask them a couple quick questions, kind of feel them out, as far as if they've been doing marketing, what they've been doing, if they've been spending money, how much are they spending, and kind of just get an idea of if this would be a good fit or not, if they, are generating leads right now, or if they're a startup. And then at that point, on the first call, I blatantly tell them, what our prices are, and say, hey, look, our pricing starts at $1,500 a month. We don't have any contracts, anything like that. But, if, and then I just say, is that within your budget range? And if they say no, then I say, okay, cool, no problem. You know, and I just tell them, like, look, the only thing I would tell you is don't go with anybody that's, telling you to spend less than about $1,000, because they're not going to be able to do enough. And so, either, and if they say yes, that's within my budget range, we schedule a strategy call at that point for about 30 minutes within the next, it could be 24 hours to the next couple of days. And then we get back on a call at that point and I work up a whole strategy for them.
Right. I think also one more very important point here is that, you also need to ask the businesses that, whether their budget actually will do justice based on what the competition is doing. And I think if
Correct.
we start, like if we know that the business has pockets to spend, but if we can actually, as an agency, explain that logically to them with proper
Yep.
reports, and logic, I think that will also help agencies working with local businesses a lot.
Yeah. So because a lot of times, like what you're saying, like we don't have a whole lot of churn. So we've had clients for years. So once if you can see that, and a lot of that comes down to, we usually don't take on clients that haven't been doing marketing or haven't been spending money on marketing before. Or if they're new and they're just starting a business, we don't take on those clients either, because it just doesn't make sense unless they want to do pay per click on top of it and they've got a healthy um, cash flow, that they are just sitting on some money, because they're going to have to spend money and they're probably not going to get a whole lot of leads. So you've got to, and then also you're going to get churn if you go into a low price point. So a lot of businesses that only want to pay $300, $400, $500 are probably not in the, they're not thinking long term as far as marketing and far as business. They're just looking for a quick fix. And that's just not going to work. I mean, it's so.
Right, right. Also, Justin, you help businesses generate leads through LinkedIn. That's one more service which you offer. uh, what are the elements to look at when one is optimizing his LinkedIn profile page?
Yeah, so you can, so yeah, we help business, so we can optimize as far as like the LinkedIn page. So you want to have your LinkedIn profile set up to where it's talking to your prospective, clients, customers, patients, whatever it is. So you want to make it look nice and robust. You put some videos on there, put some images, have your profile as far as the, summary, make it kind of like a sales page, a landing page of sorts. And so we'll go in and we actually will write that for you, and then also write up a headline, and then we'll put in all the features and videos and images just to make it look real nice and snazzy. So at that point, though, that's only going to get you so far. So yes, that's nice, and once people come to your profile, that's going to be good. But if you do want to take it to the next level, you're going to have to do some outreach through LinkedIn, through messages, through connecting with other people. And so we help with that as far as sending out messages to connect with them. And then after that, we'll send out like a kind of a follow-up message depending on how aggressive you want to get in the sales process.
Right, right. Also, when you're trying to outreach via LinkedIn, is there a strategy which, you know, says, this is the number of outreach or requests or messages you should send daily, and then, based on the acceptance rate, this is how much you should go, because there's always that risk of getting the profile blocked.
Yeah, yeah. So I would do you can do 50 to 100 requests a day, um, out requesting to connect, and then at a certain point you have to either withdraw those connection requests, or at about 5,000, if you have 5,000 outstanding connection requests, you're going to have to withdraw some of them. But it's all going to depend on the message that you're sending when you send that connection request, and if they're actual, decent clients or decent prospects. Because I mean, we all get them. Those, the messages, they look generic, and you can tell that they're sending this to hundreds of people, and you can either accept it or not. But if you get a decent message that looks like, hey, this person actually, looks at my profile, knows what I'm doing, then those get accepted a lot more.
Right.
So.
And I believe these would not be direct sales pitches, because, the first step is trying to get connected, right?
Connect. So yeah, so you don't want to do a sales pitch on the connection message. You just want to kind of get connected. And then even on the second message, I don't do a sales pitch on that either. Usually what I do is send over, I just kind of send over like a blog post or something that is beneficial to the connection. So maybe it'd be like a checklist or something that could help out their business. And then at that point, you don't look like you're trying to sell them something. I mean, obviously you probably are, but you don't look like you're selling them something. And then the next message could be like, hey, here's another article. It's kind of like soft selling.
Right, right,
You're just giving them info so that they can then be reached back out.
right. On an average, how long is the sales cycle?
It just depends. Sometimes you'll get people right on the first or second message. Sometimes it can take months. I mean, it just depends on if somebody's ready to go, or if somebody, doesn't. If you send out, it depends on how many messages you're sending out too. So, in how you're doing it. I mean, I would say the sales cycle could be a couple days to a couple weeks, depending on how many messages you got going out.
Right, right. Also, Justin, we are all are staying home because of the coronavirus situation. How do you see
Yep.
that affecting, you know local businesses, but mainly agencies working with local businesses? How have you seen the impact?
So it's I mean, it is definitely affecting. So like we haven't had anybody specifically say like, I'm canceling with you. I'm not coming back. But we've had probably, I'd say 40 to 50% of some of the clients that just like had to pause the
Right,
campaigns for a month or two. Now, I'm seeing a lot of messages out there that say, don't let your clients, cancel, or don't let them pause, or, you got to figure out a way to keep them. Um, if the business is closed down and they literally cannot take customers, or there's no way for them to take customers, and they're already ranking pretty good, I just can't in my right mind not let them just pause for a couple months if they're hurting. So it's one of those things. You can do whatever you want with your agency, but if you actually want a client to come back, I wouldn't tell them that they have to continue to do it. Now, and some of those are there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's not like you're not doing a good job. They're not getting any business. So they had to, some of them have to furlough their staff or, let them go. And so, marketing is probably not, number one thing. So, but on the other hand, I have the other 50% who, some of them, their leads have diminished a little bit, but they're still getting business. And so they're continuing on. And then we've actually even gotten some new clients. So, in different niches in like the, home improvement niche, and then also a couple, national clients. So it's kind of all over the place. I think agencies, this is where if like we run super lean, like our expenses are super low. So we can, and if the less clients we have, the lower our expenses get. So it doesn't like correlate to where we still have high expenses if we lose clients. But a lot of agencies, they have, ton of staff that they got to pay. And so those people, yeah, I mean, they're going to be in trouble. I think that at that point, you may have to readjust how you operate, and just kind of go figure out how to get lean. And you may have to let some people go and, bring them on as contract work or however you got to do it.
No, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of an agency. I mean, I always have, seen it as, based on what your client base or your inflow is, you need to plan your expenses accordingly, rather than, I have come across agencies who are very high, with the back end and tech, without actually, having a set plan of what their actual inflow is. And I think, nowadays, with all these systems, processes, technology, out there, it's very easy even for big agencies, who have a big client base, to smartly plan, what parts of the business they can outsource. Obviously,
Yep.
you need to vet the partners, but there are some parts of the business which can be outsourced smartly.
Yep.
And then you need to be sure about which parts to invest heavily on and keep them in house. So yeah,
Right.
absolutely, I think maybe this situation will also result in a lot of agencies who never tried to go that route, plan accordingly.
Yeah, it's either that or they're going to go under, and that helps out us too. Who
Yep,
knows?
yep.
It is what it is. I mean, yeah, you need to, if you are an agency, you need to be running at a certain profit margin continually. It doesn't matter how many clients you have. So that's kind of where you got to look at. I mean, you should hopefully be in that 50 to 70 range profit margin if you can figure that out. And that's where you can really, you can adjust if you lose clients or not. You're not sweating it.
Right, right. So, Justin, since this is not a live webinar, so I think, while we were discussing LinkedIn, a question came to my mind, which I did not ask at that time. So I'll just go back to the previous question,
Yeah.
because maybe our viewers might have this question as well. It just came up as a follow-up in my mind. What are the niches which work well for LinkedIn when you're trying to outreach? Which niches are the best fit?
So if you're trying to outreach on LinkedIn, well, I mean, a lot of it's going to be like now are you asking as far as through an agency or for businesses, for local
No,
businesses
for
or
agency, for agency.
for agency? Okay. Well, if you do, you got to think about who's actually going to be on there a lot. So like we've actually outreached to a lot of dentists before, and if they use LinkedIn, then they'll respond, but you'll get a lot of them that never go on there. So it's kind of okay. You just got to think about who uses LinkedIn. We've seen more, if you're looking at more business, like business to, if they do business to business instead of business to consumer, those are more like, we've got a print shop that does a lot for law firms.
Mm-hmm.
So, them going after lawyers on LinkedIn actually, makes sense, and it's a lot easier because, they're lawyers are a little bit more business oriented. They're probably, they're on LinkedIn more. Um, but if you think of, dentists, they're not sitting there all day on LinkedIn, you know, looking for clients. Okay. Now, can it work? Sure. It's just not as, you got to think about the niche that you're going after and if they're going to be playing around on LinkedIn a lot or not.
Right, right. Well, I know, speaking of lawyers, I know two of my, friends who only work with law firms as agencies. So I
Yep.
think this question I would want to ask on their behalf. So fine, LinkedIn works very well for law. What apart from LinkedIn, like for an agency focusing on law clients, what are, other strategies that actually work well?
I mean, yeah, you could do the LinkedIn, or again, we actually, first of all, I mean, you want to rank for those law
Of
terms
course,
in
of
your
course.
areas.
Right.
But we actually, I mean, we run pay-per-click ads too, and actually have had pretty good success with paid ads on Google. And you can run those for, law firm clients and get them through a funnel that way. As well as we've done outreach through email, and that's, that hasn't worked as well, but you can get in front of some people. And then, um, as far as, I would do LinkedIn, and then the paid ads would be my two that I would go after. And
Mhm.
then I'd follow up with, running some Facebook ads specifically for lawyers that, gets them to maybe download a checklist or sends them to some kind of short webinar real quick to get them to book a call.
Right, right. Well, Justin, I know you have limited time, but thank you so much for your time today. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, some myths with local SEO, we try to, solve them, answer them, but definitely I'll try, getting you on a panel discussion again, next
Yeah.
time when we have time. But thank you so much, man. You take
Yep.
care and be safe.
Appreciate you having me. Talk soon.
Bye bye.